Have you checked the pennies hiding in your change jar lately? Because one small copper coin that most people overlook could be worth far more than anyone ever imagined. Across America, collectors still search for one of the most fascinating Lincoln cents ever produced, the 1960 Lincoln penny. While millions were struck, only an incredibly small number with the right characteristics, remarkable condition, and extraordinary minting errors have captured the attention of elite collectors. Some examples have reached astonishing prices at auction, and the rarest combinations have fueled stories of values climbing into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Imagine discovering that what looks like an ordinary 1-cent coin could completely change the way you look at every handful of pocket change forever. The year 1960 marked an important chapter in American coinage. The Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents that entered circulation during one of America's fastest-growing decades. Families spent them on groceries, newspapers, and gasoline, never imagining that decades later collectors would examine these same pennies under powerful magnification, searching for tiny details capable of transforming an ordinary coin into an extraordinary treasure. But here is where the story becomes interesting. Not every 1960 penny is valuable. In fact, most are worth only a few cents. That is exactly why so many rare examples continue to slip through unnoticed. They blend into jars, dresser drawers, old coffee cans, forgotten piggy banks, and inherited collections because they look almost identical to the billions of other Lincoln cents produced throughout American history. Now let me ask you something. If someone handed you a penny worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, would you recognize it, or would you spend it buying a cup of coffee? That single question keeps collectors awake at night. The excitement begins with condition. Professional grading has become one of the biggest factors determining value. Coins showing nearly perfect surfaces, blazing original mint luster, razor-sharp details, and virtually no signs of circulation command the strongest interest. Every tiny scratch, fingerprint, or nick can dramatically influence value. That is why two pennies struck on the very same day can end up separated by thousands of dollars once grading experts evaluate them. But condition alone isn't the whole story. The real legends begin with mint errors. Some of the most sought-after 1960 pennies display dramatic striking abnormalities. Collectors carefully inspect for doubled lettering, off-center strikes, die cracks, die chips, repunched mint marks on earlier varieties, and other unusual production mistakes that escaped quality control decades ago. These minting accidents transformed ordinary coins into one-of-a-kind collectibles, each carrying its own unique fingerprint from the minting process. Here's the funny part. The U.S. Mint certainly wasn't trying to create million-dollar collectibles. Imagine explaining to the workers in 1960 that one tiny mistake during production could someday have collectors celebrating like they had just won the lottery. They probably would have laughed and gone right back to striking pennies. Yet history has a remarkable sense of humor. Over time, demand has continued growing as more collectors compete for the finest surviving examples. Every year, more coins become damaged, cleaned, polished, or lost forever. That shrinking supply naturally increases competition for pristine pieces that remain untouched. And this is where emotions take over. Imagine opening an old family box passed down through generations. Inside sits a faded coin album that nobody has examined in decades. You flip through page after page until one bright copper penny catches your attention. There it is, a 1960. Your heart begins racing. Could this be one of the rare survivors collectors dream about? Before excitement turns into celebration, remember something extremely important. Many exaggerated stories circulate online claiming every 1960 penny is worth a fortune. That simply isn't true. Authentic rarity comes from exceptional preservation, desirable varieties, and verified mint errors recognized by experienced grading professionals. Knowledge separates lucky discoveries from costly mistakes. That is why successful collectors slow down instead of rushing. They study. They compare. They inspect every letter, every number, every surface under proper lighting. Sometimes the smallest detail becomes the biggest difference. Even experienced collectors occasionally overlook important features during their first inspection. Then months later, after another careful examination, they discover an overlooked variety that completely changes the coin's significance. Think about that for a moment. How many forgotten pennies across America are still waiting inside cookie tins, attic boxes, or inherited collections, completely unnoticed? No one truly knows. That mystery continues driving one of America's most exciting treasure hunts. The 1960 Lincoln penny reminds us that extraordinary opportunities often hide inside ordinary objects. While most people search for wealth in complicated investments, some collectors quietly search through loose change with magnifying glasses and patience, knowing remarkable discoveries sometimes appear where nobody else thinks to look. Whether your goal is building a valuable collection, preserving American history, or simply satisfying your curiosity, every coin deserves a second look before it's tossed into circulation. The next penny you examine may simply be worth 1 cent. Or it could possess the rare combination of quality, history, and minting characteristics that collectors eagerly pursue. The greatest treasures are rarely announced with flashing lights. More often, they wait silently for someone observant enough to recognize their hidden story. So before you ignore another old Lincoln penny, pause for just a moment. Look closely. Turn it over. Examine the date. Find that tiny D mint mark beneath the year. Because somewhere in America, someone will eventually discover an overlooked coin that changes everything they thought they knew about pocket change. And the next unforgettable discovery could be sitting much closer than anyone realizes, perhaps even in your own collection, quietly waiting for the day someone finally notices its extraordinary potential. Have you ever dropped a handful of pennies into a jar without a second thought? What if one of those ordinary-looking coins could be worth more than a luxury home? It sounds impossible, yet stories like these have turned everyday Americans into overnight winners. The surprising part is that the coin attracting so much attention isn't made of gold or silver. It's the humble 1987 Lincoln 1-cent penny with no mint mark. Most people have seen one. Very few have ever looked closely enough to recognize what separates an ordinary cent from one collectors are willing to pay extraordinary money for. Before you assume every 1987 penny is valuable, stay with me, because the details hidden in plain sight make all the difference. Millions of these pennies entered circulation, passing through grocery stores, gas stations, vending machines, and family piggy banks. Most remain worth only a single cent. But every so often, an exceptional example appears with characteristics that send experienced collectors into a frenzy. That's because the rarest coins are often born from tiny manufacturing imperfections, outstanding preservation, or unusual striking characteristics that escaped notice for decades. The 1987 Lincoln cent without a mint mark was produced in Philadelphia. During that period, Philadelphia cents typically carried no mint mark, making the absence of a letter completely normal. But here's where the story becomes fascinating. While the coin itself is common, a handful stand apart because of remarkable minting errors or nearly flawless condition. Imagine reaching into an old coffee can filled with pennies from the 1980s. Most people would see nothing but loose change. A trained collector sees possibilities. That's the difference between spending a fortune and finding one. Now here's a question. When was the last time you actually looked at the date on a penny? Exactly. That's why valuable coins often stay hidden for decades. Collectors examine every tiny detail. They search for dramatic off-center strikes, broad strikes, die cracks, die breaks, double design elements, clipped planchets, and other unusual production errors. Even subtle doubling in the lettering or date can transform an ordinary coin into something collectors eagerly compete to own. The stronger and more dramatic the error, the greater the excitement. Condition is equally important. A coin that never entered circulation and still displays blazing original red luster can command prices thousands of times higher than an identical coin that spent years bouncing around in pockets. Professional grading services evaluate preservation using strict numerical grades, and the difference between one grade and the next can mean tens of thousands of dollars. Now let's talk about the number that grabs everyone's attention. Reports sometimes circulate claiming that a remarkable 1987 no-mint mark Lincoln cent has reached values approaching $787,000 under extraordinary circumstances. Those headlines capture imaginations across America. However, it's important to understand that such figures are associated only with exceptionally rare examples possessing extraordinary characteristics, elite grading, or unique collector demand. They do not represent the value of a typical 1987 penny found in circulation. That may sound disappointing at first, but don't stop listening. History has repeatedly shown that overlooked coins can surprise even experienced collectors. Entire collections have been discovered in old dresser drawers, inherited jars, forgotten bank rolls, and dusty attic boxes. Families who believed they owned nothing more than spare change suddenly discovered coins worth far more than they ever imagined. Here's something almost everyone gets wrong. They clean old coins before trying to sell them. Please don't. Cleaning usually destroys the original surface collectors want to see. Even gentle polishing can reduce a coin's desirability and significantly lower its value. Ironically, the shiny coin often becomes the less valuable one. Instead, hold the coin only by its edges. Use good lighting and a magnifying glass. Study the date carefully. Inspect Lincoln's portrait, the lettering, and both sides for unusual features. Compare anything suspicious with verified examples before making conclusions. And here's another thought. What if the penny sitting in your kitchen drawer isn't valuable, but the one underneath it is? That's exactly why experienced treasure hunters never inspect only one coin. They inspect every single one. The excitement isn't simply about money. It's about discovery. It's about recognizing something everyone else overlooked. Every collector remembers the first time they found a coin that made their heart race. That feeling keeps people searching year after year. The Lincoln cent itself carries a proud American history. Introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln, it became the first regularly circulating United States coin to feature a real historical figure. For generations, these pennies witnessed birthdays, family vacations, school lunches, first jobs, and countless everyday moments. Some quietly accumulated stories while hiding remarkable value in plain sight. Think about how many 1987 pennies still exist inside forgotten collections. Some remain sealed inside original bank rolls. Others sit untouched inside inherited boxes that haven't been opened in decades. Every unopened container represents another mystery waiting to be solved. Here's the funny part. People spend hours searching beaches with expensive metal detectors while ignoring the jar of pennies already sitting on their own shelf. Sometimes treasure doesn't require a map. It requires curiosity. The next time you receive change at a store, don't rush to spend it. Pause for just a moment. Turn the penny over. Read the date. Look for unusual features. Ask yourself whether you're holding an ordinary cent or the beginning of an unforgettable story. Because extraordinary discoveries almost always begin with ordinary objects. And somewhere tonight, someone will unknowingly spend a coin that another collector has been searching for during years of dedicated hunting. The question is simple. Will that coin pass through your hands before someone else recognizes its hidden potential? Only those willing to look closely will ever know. Have you checked the pennies hiding in your change jar lately? Most people glance at a 1988 Lincoln penny, see 1 cent, and move on without another thought. But what if that ordinary-looking coin was anything but ordinary? What if a single detail, almost invisible to the naked eye, could transform an everyday penny into the kind of discovery collectors dream about for years? The truth is, while millions of 1988 Lincoln cents were struck without a mint mark at the Philadelphia Mint, a tiny number with exceptional characteristics and dramatic minting errors have shocked the collecting world with astonishing prices. Some extraordinary examples have sold for life-changing sums, proving that treasure doesn't always arrive in a treasure chest. Sometimes it arrives in your pocket. That possibility is exactly why experienced collectors never ignore a 1988 Lincoln cent. Every coin tells a story, but a rare one tells a story that can change someone's financial future. Imagine finding a forgotten penny in an old coffee can, a family coin jar, or the bottom of a dresser drawer, only to discover it deserves the attention of professional graders instead of a vending machine. The 1988 Lincoln cent represents an interesting chapter in American coinage. Produced primarily with a copper-plated zinc core, it carried the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. At first glance, there is nothing dramatic about it. It looks like thousands of other pennies that still circulate today. That ordinary appearance is exactly what makes the rare examples so fascinating. Now here's the surprising part. Not every valuable coin announces itself. Some hide behind tiny production mistakes that occurred during the minting process. Those mistakes can turn a common coin into an extraordinary collectible. Before we continue, ask yourself one question. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny instead of spending it? Exactly. Most people never do. Among the most talked about varieties is the famous transitional reverse variety that specialists eagerly search for. Certain 1988 pennies display design characteristics associated with a different year's reverse die, creating subtle but important differences that experienced collectors recognize immediately. These varieties are far scarcer than ordinary circulation strikes and have generated tremendous excitement within the numismatic community. Then come the dramatic mint errors. Double dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, die breaks, and significant misalignments can all increase collector interest. While many errors are minor, the spectacular examples become centerpieces in elite collections because every error represents a moment inside the mint that was never supposed to happen. Think about it this way. Factories build identical products every day. But collectors don't chase perfection alone. They chase fascinating accidents. And here's where the story becomes even more interesting. Condition changes everything. A worn 1988 penny may be worth only face value, but a sharply struck example with blazing original luster, virtually no contact marks, and an exceptional certified grade can become dramatically more desirable. Professional grading services evaluate coins under strict standards, and even a single point difference can separate an ordinary collectible from an elite rarity. Imagine two identical-looking pennies sitting side by side. One buys almost nothing. The other becomes the centerpiece of a major auction. The difference isn't luck anymore. It's preservation, rarity, authentication, and collector demand all working together. Some headlines have fueled excitement by suggesting extraordinary examples could approach values as high as $788,000 under exceptional circumstances involving extreme rarity, elite condition, and highly sought-after mint characteristics. These figures represent remarkable outliers rather than typical prices, but they demonstrate why collectors continue examining every detail before dismissing a seemingly ordinary cent. That's enough to make anyone pause before tossing loose change into a tip jar. Here's something even seasoned collectors admit. The biggest mistake isn't overlooking a valuable coin once. It's overlooking hundreds of them over a lifetime. Families unknowingly spend collectible coins every day. Estate sales, inherited collections, piggy banks, and forgotten jars often contain coins that have never been professionally examined. Many people assume that because a coin isn't old, it cannot be valuable. History repeatedly proves otherwise. The excitement comes from possibility. Somewhere, someone will discover an overlooked rarity this year. Someone will experience that unforgettable moment when an ordinary afternoon becomes an extraordinary story. Could it happen to you? Maybe the penny sitting in your desk drawer deserves another look. Maybe the coin tucked inside an old wallet has waited decades for someone to notice what everyone else missed. The smartest collectors don't rely on guesses. They examine carefully under magnification, compare design details, look for unusual errors, preserve coins without cleaning them, and seek professional authentication whenever something appears unusual. Ironically, cleaning a coin in hopes of making it more valuable often destroys the very surfaces collectors prize most. Sometimes patience becomes more valuable than polish. The next time you receive change at the grocery store, gas station, or neighborhood diner, resist the urge to ignore those pennies. One careful glance could reveal a fascinating variety, an unexpected mint error, or an exceptionally preserved coin that deserves far more attention than its face value suggests. History has shown again and again that remarkable discoveries often begin with ordinary moments. A single penny can inspire curiosity, spark a lifelong passion for collecting, or even become an unforgettable financial surprise. The 1988 no-mint marked Lincoln cent reminds us that hidden value often exists where few people bother to look. So before another handful of pennies disappears into circulation forever, ask yourself one final question. What if the next coin you overlook is the one everyone else wishes they had found first? Imagine finding a 1-cent coin sitting quietly in a forgotten drawer, a family collection, or even mixed among everyday pocket change, only to discover that this tiny piece of copper-colored history could hold a secret worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. It sounds impossible, almost like a treasure story from a movie. But across America, ordinary people have uncovered rare coins that transformed a simple penny into an extraordinary discovery. And today, we are looking at the 2002 Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin that has captured the attention of collectors searching for hidden value. Before you ignore that old penny sitting in a jar, consider this question: what if the difference between 1 cent and a life-changing discovery was just one small detail you never noticed? Because in the world of coin collecting, rarity, condition, and unusual characteristics can completely change the story of a coin. The 2002 Lincoln cent was produced during an era when billions of pennies were created for everyday use across the United States. Featuring the iconic portrait of President Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, this coin represents a familiar piece of American history. Most examples are worth only their face value, but collectors know that sometimes the smallest details create the biggest surprises. Now, here is where the story becomes fascinating. Many people believe valuable coins must always come from the distant past, buried for generations in old boxes or hidden in forgotten estates. But that is not always true. Modern coins can become collectible treasures when they contain rare errors, unusual strikes, or exceptional conditions that separate them from millions of ordinary examples. The 2002 Lincoln penny may look simple at first glance, but collectors carefully examine every detail. They look for unusual features such as striking mistakes, double design elements, unusual surfaces, missing details, or coins preserved in nearly perfect condition. These small differences can create massive interest because collectors are not just buying metal. They are buying rarity, history, and the story behind the coin. And this is where many people make a costly mistake. They see a penny and think, it is only 1 cent. But that mindset could cause someone to overlook something valuable sitting right in front of them. Imagine throwing away a coin that could have been worth thousands, or even missing the opportunity to discover a rare example that collectors are willing to chase. The excitement surrounding rare coin discoveries comes from one powerful idea: anyone could be holding the next surprise. You do not need a museum collection or a wealthy background to begin searching. Sometimes the journey starts with something as ordinary as checking the coins you already own. Of course, not every 2002 Lincoln penny is automatically worth a fortune. The true value depends on specific characteristics, professional evaluation, and what collectors are willing to pay at a given time. Some rare coin claims mention values reaching as high as $722,000 for extraordinary examples, but those kinds of prices are reserved for coins with exceptional rarity, condition, and collector demand. So how can you protect yourself from missing a valuable discovery? Start by looking carefully. Examine the date, the mint mark area, the condition of the surface, and any unusual features that seem different from normal coins. Avoid cleaning coins, because cleaning can damage collectible value. A coin that looks old and untouched often tells a better story than one that has been polished. And here is the surprising part: the greatest treasure may not be the coin itself. It is the knowledge gained from learning what makes something valuable. Every collector begins with curiosity. Every expert once looked at a coin and asked, could this be something special? Think about it. A small penny created for everyday transactions can travel through countless hands, survive decades of change, and eventually become a piece of history that collectors compete to own. That transformation from ordinary object to valuable discovery is what makes coin collecting so exciting. The world of rare coins is full of hidden possibilities, but the biggest discoveries often come from people who pay attention. The next valuable coin may not be locked away in a vault. It could be sitting in an old jar, a childhood collection, or the loose change you almost forgot about. So before you spend that 2002 Lincoln penny, take a closer look. Search for the details that others overlook. Because sometimes, the difference between a common coin and a remarkable discovery is just one moment of curiosity. The stories of rare coins remind us that opportunity can appear in the most unexpected places. A simple penny can carry history, mystery, and the possibility of something much greater. And the next time you find an old coin, remember this: what looks ordinary today could become tomorrow's incredible discovery. Imagine finding a simple 1-cent coin hiding in a drawer, a jar, or an old collection, and discovering that the tiny piece of copper-colored history in your hand could be connected to a fortune. Most people walk past pennies every day without a second thought. They see pocket change. But collectors see possibilities. And today, we are uncovering the story behind the 2003 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin that has captured attention among treasure hunters and penny enthusiasts searching for overlooked value. Before you throw away that old jar of coins, ask yourself one important question: what if the next penny you ignore is the one everyone else wishes they had found first? The Lincoln cent has been part of American life for more than a century. Since its introduction in 1909, this small coin has carried the image of President Abraham Lincoln and has become one of the most collected coins in the United States. Millions of Lincoln pennies have been produced, but collectors know that rarity is not always about age. Sometimes the smallest details create the biggest stories. The 2003 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny represents an interesting chapter in modern coin collecting. Coins without a visible mint mark can attract attention because collectors immediately begin asking questions. Was it made at a special facility? Was it an unusual production mistake? Did something happen during the minting process that created a rare variety? That curiosity is what drives the world of coin collecting. A tiny difference that most people would never notice can completely change how a collector views a coin. And here is where the story becomes fascinating. Many people believe only ancient coins can become valuable, but that idea has surprised collectors again and again. A coin from a recent decade can sometimes become highly desirable when it contains a rare error, unusual condition, or a feature that separates it from millions of ordinary examples. Think about it for a moment. A penny that once had the simple purpose of buying a small item could one day become the center of a serious collection. It is almost like finding out the old baseball card sitting in your attic was not just paper, but a piece of history. But there is a reason experienced collectors always say, never judge a coin by its face value. The excitement begins when collectors carefully examine details. They look at the date, the design, the condition, the lettering, the edges, and any unusual characteristics created during production. A coin with sharp details, exceptional preservation, or a recognized minting error can become far more interesting than a normal circulated coin. This is where many people make a mistake. They search only for old coins and ignore newer pennies. They assume a coin from the 2000s cannot matter. But the truth is that every generation creates future collectibles. The coins people overlook today can become tomorrow's discoveries. Now comes the part that surprises many treasure hunters. Stories surrounding rare Lincoln cents often include extraordinary auction results and high-value examples that have reached hundreds of thousands of dollars when unique characteristics, extreme rarity, and collector demand come together. Some enthusiasts have discussed potential values reaching as high as $723,000 for exceptional examples connected to rare features and collector interest. But remember, the value of any coin depends on what makes that specific coin different. A regular 2003 Lincoln penny found in circulation is usually worth only its face value. The real excitement comes from discovering something unusual. So how do you know if your coin deserves a closer look? Start by protecting it. Do not clean it. Do not polish it. A shiny coin may look better to the eye, but cleaning can damage the original surface and reduce collector appeal. Instead, handle it carefully and examine it under good lighting. Look for anything that seems different from other pennies you own. Here is the question that keeps collectors searching: what if the rare one is still out there waiting to be discovered? Every coin has a story. Some were carried in pockets, some were saved in collections, and some were forgotten for decades. The journey of a single penny can connect everyday people with history, curiosity, and the possibility of an unexpected discovery. The world of coin collecting is not just about money. It is about patience, knowledge, and seeing value where others see something ordinary. A small coin can teach a big lesson: never overlook the little things. Because sometimes, the biggest opportunities are hidden in the smallest places. So before you empty that coin jar, before you toss those old pennies aside, take another look. Learn the details. Study the history. Because the next incredible discovery might not be buried in a treasure chest or hidden in a museum. It might be sitting quietly in your own home. And that is the mystery that keeps millions of collectors searching, one coin at a time.